Commander Zethkar's full eyes tracked the holographic display with growing unease. The readings made no sense. The massive spatial distortion above Nexus Prime defied every known law of physics, its energy signature unlike anything in the Council's databases. Analysis complete, Commander, reported Science Officer Veltar, her crystalline voice carrying an edge of confusion. The rift measures approximately 50,000 kilometers in diameter. Energy output is impossible. Define impossible, Zethkar demanded, her chitinous fingers dancing across the command console. Around them, the bridge of the Council flagship Eternal Vigilance hummed with nervous activity. Officers from a dozen different species worked frantically at their stations, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and telepathic pulses. The power required to maintain such a breach would exceed the combined output of our entire fleet by a factor of 10,000. Veltar replied, her 6 arms gesturing helplessly at the incomprehensible data. No known civilization possesses such capability. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in frustration. In her 2 centuries of service, she had never encountered anything that challenged the Council's understanding of the universe so completely. The Galactic Council represented the pinnacle of technological achievement, a union of the galaxy's most advanced species. Yet here they stood, helpless before a phenomenon that shouldn't exist. Commander, we're receiving a transmission, announced Communications Officer Frendau, his gaseous form shimmering with anxiety. It's coming from inside the rift. The bridge fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and consciousness focused on the main display as static filled the air. Then, through the interference, came a voice that sent eyes through every being present. It was unmistakably human. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Oath Defense Force vessel Retribution. We are requesting immediate clearance for standard approach to Nexus Prime. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Zethkar felt her secondary heart skip a beat. Around her, officers exchanged looks of disbelief and terror. Human voices belonged to nightmares and ancient recordings, not active transmissions. That's impossible, whispered Intelligence Officer Cravuen, his scaled hide rippling with shock. The humans were exterminated 3 centuries ago. We witnessed the destruction of Earth ourselves. But even as he spoke, something began to emerge from the rift's swirling depths. At first, it appeared as a shadow, a dark mass that seemed to absorb the surrounding light. Then, as it moved closer, details became horrifyingly clear. The ship was massive beyond comprehension. Where the largest Council vessels measured 10 kilometers in length, this human construct stretched nearly 100. Its hull was matte black, covered in angular armor plating that seemed to drink in the light from nearby stars. Weapon emplacements dotted its surface like metallic tumors, each one larger than most Council frigates. Mother of the Void, breathed Veltar, her scientific composure cracking. How is something that size even structurally possible? The human vessel moved with impossible grace for its size, its approach vector calculated with mathematical precision. As it drew closer, more details became visible. The ship's designation was emblazoned across its hull in letters that burned like white fire, EDF Retribution. Below that, in smaller text that chilled every Council officer to their core, were the words, "Remember Earth." All ships, this is Admiral Corventhal, crackled the fleet-wide communication channel. Maintain defensive positions, but do not engage. I repeat, do not engage unless fired upon. Zethkar understood the Admiral's caution. The Council maintained over 3,000 vessels in the Nexus Prime Defense Fleet, representing combined might of 4 to 7 species. Yet something about the lone human ship made their overwhelming numerical advantage feel meaningless. Captain Chen, Zethkar transmitted, her voice carefully controlled. This is Commander Zethkar of the Galactic Council Defense Force. Your arrival has caused considerable concern. We were under the impression that humanity had been eliminated during the Great Purge. The response came immediately, the human captain's voice carrying an edge of dark amusement. Eliminated? Is that what you call it? How disappointingly clinical. We prefer the term genocide. The accusation hit like a physical blow. The Great Purge had been a necessity, or so the Council had been told. Humanity had been deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable, too willing to break the established order. Their rapid technological advancement and refusal to submit to council authority had marked them for elimination. "Captain," Zefkar began, but Chen cut her off. 300 years, Commander. 300 years we've been preparing for this moment. Building, growing, learning, and now we're home. On the tactical display, the human ship's weapon systems were powering up, their energy signatures unlike anything in council databases. The readings were impossible, yet undeniably real. Whatever humanity had become during their exile, they had transcended every limitation the council thought governed advanced civilizations. "Your approach is noted, Captain." Admiral Corvinthal's voice joined the channel. "However, I must inform you that humanity no longer has standing within the Galactic Council. Earth and its colonies were legally dissolved following the murder of 12 billion innocent people," Chen interrupted, her voice turning cold as a void between stars. "Following the systematic extermination of every human settlement you could find. Following the greatest crime in galactic history." The Admiral's response was swift and bureaucratic. The Council's actions were deemed necessary for galactic stability. Humanity's aggressive expansion and technological development pose a threat to established order. Silence stretched across the communication channel. Then, Captain Chen spoke again, and her words carried the weight of 3 centuries of pain, loss, and unquenchable rage. "We are no longer the species you remember. Admiral, we are what you made us, and we have returned to collect what is owed." The Retribution continued its approach, its massive bulk casting shadows across the defending fleet. In the depths of space, other shapes began to emerge from the rift. More human vessels, each one radiating the same impossible power signatures. The myth had become reality, and reality was about to become humanity's revenge. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of the Retribution, her weathered hands pressed against the reinforced viewport. The sight before her should have filled her with satisfaction, but instead she felt only the familiar weight of memory. Nexus Prime hung in space like a jewel, its massive orbital platforms and defensive stations a testament to Council engineering. Once, she had dreamed of seeing such wonders. Now, she saw only targets. "Remarkable how small it looks from here," said Commander Jake Morrison, joining her at the viewport. His augmented eyes gleamed with subdued light, a reminder of the modifications that had kept him alive during the long journey home. "I remember when a single council station seemed impossible to overcome." Elena nodded, her reflection ghost-like in the transparent aluminum. "We were different then. Younger, more naive." She touched the scars that ran along her left temple, souvenirs from the Battle of Kepler Station. "We actually believed diplomacy might work." Behind them, the observation deck filled with other survivors of the Great Purge. Men and women who had watched their world burn, who had seen their families torn apart by Council forces. Each carried the same haunted expression, the same mixture of pain and purpose that had driven them through 3 centuries of preparation. Dr. Vasquez to the bridge. Captain Chen's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. "We're beginning final approach." Elena made her way through corridors that hummed with barely contained energy. The Retribution was more than just a ship. It was a monument to human ingenuity born from desperation. Every deck, every system, every weapon had been designed and built by survivors who refused to accept extinction. The bridge was a cathedral of dark metal and pulsing lights. Holographic displays showed the Council fleet in perfect detail, their formations and weapon systems laid bare by sensors that could peer through any shield or armor. Captain Chen stood at the center of it all, her presence commanding despite her relatively small stature. "Status report," Elena said, taking her position at the science station. "Council fleet is maintaining defensive positions," reported Lieutenant Commander Park, her cybernetic implants interfacing directly with the ship's tactical systems. 3,000 vessels, including 12 dreadnoughts and 4 to 7 battle cruisers. "They are scared, but they are trying not to show it." "As they should be," Chen replied, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never known defeat. "What about the planetary defenses?" "Impressive by Council standards," Park continued. "Orbital bombardment platforms, shield generators, fighter squadrons. They've turned Nexus Prime into a fortress." Elena studied the tactical display, her enhanced mind calculating trajectories and defensive patterns. "It won't be enough." They are still thinking in terms of conventional warfare. They have no idea what we've become. Chen nodded grimly. 300 years of evolution compressed into pure necessity. We didn't just survive, Elena. We transcended. The transformation of humanity hadn't been gradual or gentle. In the years following the Great Purge, the scattered survivors had faced a choice, adapt or die. They had chosen adaptation so complete that they barely resembled the species that had once called Earth home. Genetic modifications, cybernetic enhancements, and technologies that bordered on the impossible had become the norm. "Captain," called out Communications Officer Torres, "we're receiving another transmission from the Council flagship. Admiral Corventhal is requesting to speak with you directly." "Put him through," Chen replied, her expression hardening. The holographic projector activated, revealing the imposing figure of Admiral Corventhal. His forearms were spread in what Elena recognized as a gesture of authority among his species. His scale hide gleamed with bioluminescent patterns that conveyed confidence and command. "Captain Chen," the Admiral began, his voice carrying the weight of millennia of galactic authority, "I believe there has been a misunderstanding. The Council harbors no ill will toward humanity. The events of 3 centuries ago were regrettable necessities." Elena felt her jaw clench. Regrettable necessities. The clinical language used to describe the murder of billions. Regrettable. Chen's voice carried a dangerous edge. "Admiral, I was there when your forces glassed the farming colonies of Ceres Prime. I watched children burn in the streets of New Geneva. I held my dying sister, and she begged me to tell her why the aliens wanted us dead." Corvinthal's bioluminescent patterns flickered, a sign of discomfort. "Captain, I understand your anger. But surely you must realize that revenge serves no purpose. The galaxy has moved beyond the conflict of the past." "Has it?" Chen gestured to the tactical display, where Council fleets were taking increasingly aggressive formations. "Your ships are targeting our vessel as we speak. Your weapons are charging. Tell me, Admiral, what exactly has changed?" "The Council maintains order," Corventhal replied stiffly. "We ensure that no single species can threaten galactic stability. Your return complicates matters." Elena stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "Admiral, you speak of stability as if it were a virtue, but stability built on genocide is not order, it's tyranny." The Admiral's eyes focused on her, and she saw recognition flicker in his alien features. "Dr. Elena Vasquez, the Council has files on you. Xenobiology specialist. You were part of the first human delegation to Nexus Prime." "I was," Elena confirmed. "I came here believing in cooperation, in peaceful coexistence. I watched your people smile and nod while planning our extinction. I learned that day that the only language the Council truly understands is false." "The galaxy has evolved since then," Corventhal insisted. "We have new protocols, new understanding. Perhaps accommodation can be reached." Chen's laugh was bitter and cold. "Accommodation? You mean the same accommodation you offered the hegemony of Tarseth? The same understanding you showed the collective of Ornhai? How many species have you accommodated into extinction, Admiral?" The accusation hung in the air like a blade. Elena had studied the Council's history during the long journey home, documenting every species that had been eliminated for the crime of independence. Humanity was not the first to face the Council's final solution, and they would not be the last. "The Council act for the greater good," Corventhal replied, but his convictions seemed to waver. "The greater good," Chen repeated slowly. "Tell me, Admiral, what good came from burning our nurseries? What order was preserved by hunting down our evacuation ships? What stability was achieved by turning our homeworld into a graveyard?" Elena watched the Admiral's expression change, so the moment when diplomatic pretense cracked to reveal the truth beneath. His bioluminescent patterns shifted to aggressive configurations, and his voice took on a harder edge. "You are one ship, Captain, one vessel against the combined might of the galaxy. Whatever you have become, whatever weapons you possess, you cannot stand against the Council's full strength." Chen smiled, and Elena felt a chill run down her spine. That smile held no warmth, no mercy, no trace of the humanity they had once been. "Admiral," Chen said softly, "you're about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our weapons. It was our ability to adapt, to survive, to become whatever we needed to be. She paused, her eyes reflecting the cold light of distant stars. We needed to become your nightmares. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Around them, the retribution systems hummed with increasing intensity as the ship's true nature began to reveal itself. Admiral Corvinthal stared at the dead transmission channel, his forearms trembling with barely contained rage. In 6 centuries of service, no one had dared speak to him with such contempt. The human captain's words echoed in his mind, each syllable dripping with promise of violence. "Admiral," called out his tactical officer, "the human vessel is beginning some kind of transformation sequence. Energy readings are spiking beyond our senses' capacity to measure." Corvinthal turned his attention to the main display, where the impossible was becoming reality. The retribution was changing, its hull plates shifting and reconfiguring like a living organism. Weapon systems that had been concealed beneath its armor were emerging, each one radiating power signatures that defied comprehension. "How many vessels are we detecting from the rift?" he demanded. "Confirmed count is now at 4 to 7 ships, Admiral." "But—" The tactical officer's voice faltered. "Sir, the classifications don't match anything in our databases. Some appear to be dreadnoughts, others are completely unknown configurations." Corvinthal's scales rippled with unease. 4 to 7 ships against 3,000 should have been a manageable engagement, even with advanced technology. But the energy readings told a different story. Each human vessel was generating power levels that rivaled entire Council fleets. "Sir," interrupted the communications officer, "we're receiving priority transmission from the Council chamber. They are demanding an immediate status report." "Tell them the humans have returned," Corvinthal replied grimly. "Tell them we may have underestimated the threat." On the human flagship, Captain Chen walked through corridors that were transforming around her. The Retribution was more than just a ship. It was a living synthesis of human ingenuity and alien technology, rebuilt from the ashes of their defeat. Walls that had appeared solid now revealed themselves as complex networks of adaptive systems, each one designed to maximize the vessel's combat effectiveness. "Combat stations," Chen announced through the ship's communication system. "All hands, prepare for engagement. This is not a drill." The response was immediate and terrifying. Throughout the ship, systems that had remained dormant for decades began to activate. Weapons that existed in theoretical physics textbooks materialized from hidden compartments. Energy conduits that had been disguised as structural elements began to pulse with barely contained power. Dr. Vasquez made her way to the primary weapon control center, a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and neural interface pods. The crew members she passed moved with inhuman precision, their cybernetic enhancements allowing them to interface directly with the ship systems. "Status report." She called out to Commander Morrison, who was already connected to the primary weapons array through a series of neural cables. "All systems operational," Morrison replied, his voice carrying an electronic undertone. "The Council fleet is maintaining defensive positions, but they are starting to realize what they are facing." Elena nodded, settling into her own interface pod. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. Suddenly, she could feel the entire ship as an extension of her own body. Every sensor, every weapon, every shield generator responded to her thoughts as naturally as breathing. "Elena," Chen's voice came to the neural link, "I need you to target their command structure. We're not here to fight a war. We're here to send a message." Elena's enhanced consciousness reached out through the ship's sensors, analyzing the Council fleet with inhuman precision. The tactical situation was clear. The Council had arranged their ships in a defensive formation designed to protect Nexus Prime, but their positioning revealed their command hierarchy. She could see the flagship, the sector commanders, the communication relays that held their force together. "Targets identified," she reported. 12 command vessels, 4 to 7 communication nodes, and 362 key tactical positions. "Understood," Chen replied. "Initiate the demonstration." The word demonstration carried terrifying implications. Elena had helped design the weapons systems during their long exile, but she had never seen them used against a living target. The technology was based on principles that the Council had never imagined, drawing power from sources that existed outside normal space-time. "All vessels," Chen announced on the fleet-wide channel. You are about to witness the evolution of warfare. Take notes, there will be a test. The Retribution fired its primary weapon array. What happened next challenged every known law of physics. Instead of conventional energy beams or projectiles, the human ship unleashed something that existed in the space between dimensions. The attacks didn't travel through normal space. They simply appeared at their targets, bypassing shields and armor as if they didn't exist. The first Council vessel to be hit was the heavy cruiser Stellar Dominion. One moment, it was a kilometer-long warship bristling with weapons. The next, it was an expanding cloud of subatomic particles, its entire structure unraveled at the molecular level. Impossible, breathed Admiral Corvinthal, watching his sensors as 12 more ships vanished in the span of seconds. No weapon can penetrate quantum shielding. But the human weapons weren't penetrating the shields. They were ignoring them entirely. The Council's most advanced defensive systems, technologies that had taken millennia to develop, were useless against attacks that existed outside the normal universe. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Corvinthal ordered, but his words were meaningless. How could they evade weapons that didn't follow the rules of conventional space? Elena felt a surge of satisfaction as she watched the Council fleet scramble desperately to understand what they faced. These were the same aliens who had dismissed humanity as primitive, who had believed that superior numbers and advanced technology guaranteed victory. Now they were learning that evolution didn't always follow predictable paths. Elena, Chen's voice cut through her thoughts. That's enough. We're not here to commit genocide. We're here to reclaim what was stolen. Elena reluctantly deactivated the weapon systems, though every instinct screamed at her to continue the attack. The Council fleet was in chaos, their formations broken, their confidence shattered. But Chen was right. They had made their point. Admiral Corvinthal, Chen's voice echoed across the communication channels. I trust you found our demonstration educational. The Admiral's response was strained, his earlier arrogance replaced by barely controlled fear. Captain, your weapons, they violate the fundamental laws of physics. Such technology should not exist. Shouldn't exist. Chen's laugh was cold and bitter. Admiral, for 3 centuries, we weren't supposed to exist either. Yet here we are. Elena watched the tactical display as the remaining Council ships tried to regroup. Their movements were panicked, desperate, lacking the coordinated discipline that had made them the galaxy's dominant military force. The loss of just 25 vessels had shattered their confidence completely. The Council offers terms, Corvinthal transmitted. Surely we can reach some accommodation. Terms. Chen's voice carried a dangerous edge. The same terms you offered the children of Earth? The same accommodation you provided to the colonies of Alpha Centauri? Elena felt the ship's weapon systems beginning to charge again, their power signatures creating ripples in local space-time. Around them, the other human vessels were also powering up, their combined energy output enough to destabilize the fabric of reality itself. Admiral, Chen continued, you seem to be laboring under the misapprehension that we're here to negotiate. We're not. We're here to collect a debt that's been accumulating interest for 300 years. The words hung in space like a death sentence. Elena could feel the anticipation of the crew, the hunger for vengeance that had sustained them through centuries of exile. But she could also sense something else, a discipline, a control that spoke of a species that had learned to channel their rage into something more deadly than simple revenge. The debt will be paid, Chen announced. But not today. Today, you learn what fear feels like. Today, you understand that humanity is no longer the prey. The human fleet began to move, their vessels arranging themselves in a formation that somehow managed to look both elegant and terrifying. Elena realized they were positioning themselves to blockade Nexus Prime, cutting off the Council's most important world from the rest of the galaxy. This is just the beginning, Chen transmitted to the Council fleet. We have returned, and we remember everything. Councillor Threnvec materialized in the emergency session chamber, his gaseous form shimmering with agitation. Around him, the holographic representations of the galaxy's most powerful beings flickered into existence, each one carrying the weight of civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia. The reports are confirmed, announced Prime Councillor Zathol, her crystalline body resonating with barely contained authority. Humanity has returned, and they possess technology that exceeds our understanding. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices. Chittering, singing, telepathic bursts, each species expressing their shock and fear in their own way. Frenvec had seen many crises in his 8 centuries of service, but nothing had prepared him for this. "How many ships?" demanded Wooly de Korthmax, his 6 arms gesturing aggressively. "What is their full strength?" "Intelligence suggests at least 200 vessels," replied Councillor Veltai, her multiple eyes reflecting the data streams flowing around them. "But their true numbers remain unknown. They emerge from a spatial rift that our senses cannot penetrate." Frenvec drifted closer to the central display, where tactical information from the Nexus Prime incident played on an endless loop. The destruction of Council vessels was horrifying not just for its efficiency, but for its impossibility. Ships that should have been protected by every known defensive system had simply ceased to exist. "Their weapons ignore our shields," observed Science Elder Morthak, his insectoid form clicking with distress. "They attack through dimensional space, bypassing conventional defenses entirely." "Impossible," snarled Korthmax. "No species has ever developed such technology. It violates the fundamental laws of reality." "The laws of reality," Zarthol said quietly, "appear to be more flexible than we believed." The admission sent shock waves through the chamber. For 50,000 years, the Council had based their authority on superior technology and understanding. They were the galaxy's teachers, its guardians, its arbiters of what was possible. To acknowledge that a species they had tried to exterminate had surpassed them was to admit the fundamental flaw in their entire worldview. "We need to understand how they survived," Frenvec said, his voice carrying the weight of desperate necessity. "Our records show that Earth was completely sterilized. Every human colony was destroyed. How did enough of them survive to rebuild?" "Perhaps," suggested Councillor Yithere, her tentacles writhing with anxiety, "we didn't destroy them all. Perhaps some escape our notice." The possibility hung in the chamber like a toxic cloud. The Great Purge had been planned with meticulous care, every human settlement identified and targeted. The idea that significant numbers had escaped suggested either incompetence or conspiracy. "There's another possibility," Morthak said reluctantly. "Perhaps they were not merely hiding. Perhaps they were preparing." Meanwhile, aboard the Retribution, Captain Chen stood in the memorial chamber, surrounded by the names of the dead. 12 billion souls, etched in crystalline matrices that pulsed with soft light. Each name represented a life cut short, a future stolen, a debt that could never be fully repaid. "The Council is in emergency session," reported Dr. Vasquez, entering the chamber with quiet reverence. "Intelligence suggests they are trying to understand how we survived." Chen nodded, her fingers tracing the name of her sister among the countless others. "Let them wonder. Fear is more valuable than knowledge." Elena approached the captain, her enhanced senses detecting the emotional resonance that filled the chamber. The memorial wasn't just a monument. It was a weapon, a constant reminder of why they had spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment. "The fleet is in position," Elena reported. "We've established a complete blockade of Nexus Prime. No ships in or out without our permission." "Good," Chen replied. "Now we wait." "Wait for what?" Chen's smile was cold and predatory. "For them to realize that we didn't come back to destroy them. We came back to replace them." The word sent a chill down Elena's spine. During their long exile, humanity had done more than simply survive. They had evolved. The survivors had studied every species in the galaxy, learned their weaknesses, understood their fears. They had become something new, something that combined the best aspect of every civilization they had encountered. "Captain," came a voice from the bridge, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Council chamber. They are requesting negotiation." Chen's expression hardened. "Put them through." The holographic display activated, revealing the assembled leadership of the Galactic Council. Elena recognized many of them from the historical records, the same beings who had signed humanity's death warrant 3 centuries ago. "Captain Chen," Prime Counselor Zerthal began, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. "The Council wishes to extend formal recognition of humanity's return to the galaxy." "Recognition." Chen's voice carried a dangerous edge. "How generous. The same recognition you offered before you tried to exterminate us." The events of the past were regrettable, Zathol continued, but surely we can move beyond old grievances. The galaxy has evolved. Elena watched Chen's expression carefully. The captain's augmented features showed no emotion, but Elena could sense the rage burning beneath the surface. 3 centuries of preparation, of evolution, of becoming something greater than what they had been, all leading to this moment. Prime Counselor, Chen said quietly, you speak of evolution. Allow me to show you what evolution looks like. The retribution began to change again, its hull plate shifting to reveal configurations that defied every principle of naval architecture. The ship was becoming something new, something that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Around them, the rest of the human fleet was undergoing similar transformations. We are no longer the species you remember, Chen continued, her voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. We are what you forced us to become. We are your successors. Elena felt the ship's systems responding to the collective will of the crew, human consciousness merging with alien technology in ways that should have been impossible. They had become something hybrid, something that transcended the limitations of any single species. The Council offers full membership, Zathol said desperately. Equal representation, complete autonomy, anything you desire. What we desire, Chen replied, is justice. What we require is acknowledgement. What we demand is the truth. The transmission focused on Chen's face, and Elena saw something in her captain's eyes that had been building for 3 centuries. Not just rage, not just hatred, but a terrible certainty that came from absolute moral authority. The truth, Prime Counselor, is that the Council has ruled through fear for 50,000 years. You have eliminated every species that might challenge your authority, every civilization that might offer an alternative vision of the future. You have turned the galaxy into a graveyard of possibilities. Elena watched as the Council representatives shifted uncomfortably, their various forms of body language betraying their growing panic. They had built their civilization on the premise that they were the pinnacle of evolution, the ultimate expression of intelligent life. The existence of post-human civilization challenged that fundamental assumption. We are not here to negotiate, Chen continued. We are here to inform you that your time is ending. The galaxy will have new leadership, new vision, new hope. Whether that transition is peaceful or violent depends entirely on your choices in the coming days. You cannot replace the Council, protested War Leader Korthmax, his 6 arms gesturing frantically. We represent 4 to 7 species, trillions of beings. You are 4 to 7 ships. Chen's smile was radiant and terrible. War Leader, you still don't understand. We are not 4 to 7 ships. We are not even 4 to 7,000 ships. We are the future itself, and the future cannot be stopped. The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. Elena felt the ship's system continuing to evolve around them, becoming something that existed beyond the normal boundaries of space and time. They were no longer simply human. There was something new, something that combined the best aspects of every species they had encountered during their long exile. Elena, Chen said softly, initiate the next phase. It's time to show them what we've really become. Elena nodded, her consciousness expanding to encompass not just a retribution, but the entire human fleet. They were becoming something greater than the sum of their parts, a collective intelligence that spanned multiple dimensions and realities. The Council had created their own successors, and now it was time to claim their inheritance. Elena nodded, her consciousness expanding to encompass not just a retribution, but the entire human fleet. They were becoming something greater than the sum of their parts, a collective intelligence that spanned multiple dimensions and realities. The Council had created their own successors, and now it was time to claim their inheritance. The transformation began at the quantum level, invisible to conventional senses but felt by every living being in the Nexus Prime system. Reality itself seemed to shift as a human fleet dissolved the boundaries between dimensions, their ships becoming nodes in a vast network that existed across multiple layers of space-time. Admiral Corvinthal watched in horror as his instruments went haywire, their readings suggesting impossible things. The human vessels were no longer simply occupying space. They were becoming space, integrating themselves into the fabric of reality itself. All ships, emergency retreat, he ordered, but his words carried no conviction. Where could they retreat to? The humans had demonstrated that distance meant nothing to their weapons, that shields and armor were meaningless against attacks that existed outside normal physics. The transformation began at the quantum level, invisible to conventional senses but felt by every living being in the Nexus Prime system. Reality itself seemed to shift as a human fleet dissolved the boundaries between dimensions, their ships becoming nodes in a vast network that existed across multiple layers of space-time. Admiral Corvinthal watched in horror as his instruments went haywire, their readings suggesting impossible things. The human vessels were no longer simply occupying space. They were becoming space, integrating themselves into the fabric of reality itself. All ships, emergency retreat, he ordered, but his words carried no conviction. Where could they retreat to? The humans had demonstrated that distance meant nothing to their weapons, that shields and armor were meaningless against attacks that existed outside normal physics. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, voice shaking with terror, the human fleet is... I don't know how to describe it. They're everywhere and nowhere. Our senses detect them in 17 different dimensions simultaneously. Corvinthal stared at the displays, watching as the fundamental nature of space around Nexus Prime began to change. The humans weren't just blockading the system. They were rewriting the laws of physics within it. Stars that should have been light years away appeared to be made kilometers distant. Gravity fluctuated in patterns that should have torn every ship apart, yet somehow maintained perfect stability. So, whispered his communications officer, they are not just changing space. They are changing time. Temporal readings show multiple time streams converging on this location. The implications were staggering. If the humans could manipulate time itself, then every battle, every strategy, every plan became meaningless. They could strike at any point in history, alter the past, reshape the future according to their will. Aboard the Retribution, Elena felt her consciousness expanding beyond anything she had imagined possible. She was no longer simply Dr. Elena Vasquez. She was part of something vast and magnificent, a collective intelligence that spanned not just the human fleet, but the entire network of survivors scattered across dimensions. Phase transition complete, she reported, though the words felt inadequate to describe what they had become. We now exist in full multidimensional integration. Captain Chen nodded, her own awareness encompassing vast reaches of space and time. Through their shared consciousness, she could sense the fear radiating from every council vessel, feel the panic spreading through their communication networks. But she could also sense something else, hope emanating from the oppressed species throughout the galaxy. They are watching, Chen observed, her enhanced perception detecting the subtle signs of hidden observers. Every species a council has subjugated, every civilization that has lived in fear of their judgment. They are all waiting to see if we can deliver on our promises. Elena understood. The human return wasn't just about revenge, it was about liberation. For 50,000 years, the Council had maintained order through fear, eliminating any species that showed signs of independence or innovation. They had created a galaxy of sheep, content to follow rather than lead. Initiate the Revelation Protocol, Chen commanded. Across the galaxy, dormant systems began to activate. Hidden facilities that had been built during humanity's exile came online, their signals reaching every inhabited world simultaneously. The revelation was simple but devastating. The Council had been systematically eliminating advanced civilizations for millennia, not to maintain peace, but to preserve their own power. The evidence was overwhelming. Archaeological data showing the sudden disappearance of promising species, intercepted communications revealing the Council's true policies, witnessed testimonies from the few survivors of previous purges. The entire galactic civilization was built on a foundation of genocide and suppression. Prime Counselor, Chen's voice echoed across every communication channel in the galaxy. The truth is now available to all. Every species, every world, every being can see what the Council has done in the name of order. Elena watched the tactical displays as the revelation spread. On thousands of worlds, populations that had lived in quiet submission for millennia began to stir. The Council's greatest weapon, ignorance, had been shattered in a single moment. You have no idea what you've done. Zarthol's voice crackled through the communications array, her crystalline form flickering with rage. You condemn the galaxy to chaos. We've offered it freedom, Chen replied. The choice of what to do with that freedom belongs to each species individually. Elena felt the collective human consciousness analyzing the responses from across the galaxy. Some worlds were embracing the revelation, their populations rising against council authority. Others remained loyal, either through genuine belief or simple terror. But the pattern was clear. The council's absolute authority was crumbling. The transition doesn't have to be violent, Chen continued, her voice carrying across dimensional barriers to reach every being in the galaxy. We're not conquerors. We're liberators. Each species can choose its own path, form its own alliances, create its own future. Without the Council's guidance, the galaxy will tear itself apart, protested War Leader Korthmax. We have maintained peace for 50,000 years. You've maintained stagnation, Elena interjected, her enhanced consciousness interfacing directly with the Council's communication systems. You've created a galaxy where innovation is punished, where advancement is seen as a threat, where the greatest crime is having the audacity to dream of something better. The human fleet began to move, their ships flowing through dimensional space like thoughts through a vast mind. They weren't traveling to different locations. They were simultaneously existing at every point where their presence was needed. Council fleets throughout the galaxy found themselves facing impossible opponents, vessels that could attack from any direction, through any defense. We offer you a choice, Chen announced, her words reaching every council member simultaneously. Accept the new reality. Help us build a galaxy where every species can reach its full potential or be swept aside by the tide of history. Elena felt the collective human consciousness reaching out to touch the minds of beings across the galaxy, not to control or dominate, but to offer connection, understanding, the possibility of genuine cooperation between species that have been kept apart by council policies. The age of the council is ending, Chen continued. The age of true galactic civilization is beginning. We are not your conquerors. We are your children, grown beyond your ability to control. We are the future you feared to create. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the galaxy, species that had been suppressed for millennia began to emerge from hiding. Advanced civilizations that had been forced to conceal their development stepped into the light. The Council's greatest fear was becoming reality, a galaxy where no single authority could claim absolute power. This is not victory, Zathol transmitted, her form beginning to flicker as the Council's communication networks were overwhelmed by the chaos of liberation. This is the beginning of endless war. No, Chen replied, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. This is the beginning of true peace. Not the peace of the grave, but the peace of potential fulfilled. Elena watched as the human fleet began to disperse, their ships flowing through dimensional space to take positions throughout the galaxy. They were becoming guardians rather than conquerors, teachers rather than rulers. The same species that had been marked for extinction was now shepherding the galaxy toward a future that the Council had never imagined. The debt is paid, Chen announced, her words carrying the weight of 3 centuries of preparation. The circle is complete. Humanity has returned not as the species you remember, but as the children of your own creation. We are what you made us, and we are everything you feared we could become. The transformation was complete. The galaxy would never be the same. And in the depths of space, where Earth had once orbited a yellow star, something new began to grow, a monument not to the dead, but to the living and to the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. They called it a myth, until the human supercarrier exited the rift.